Hey there, guys. Taking a look at the second part of our central nervous system or our nervous system notes. And a little bit different. We're going to change things a little bit differently. And I'd like you to do some flashcard work, or maybe you do some Kahoot or something like that, where you do your own notes and just basically go through each of the sections. So I just have the notes up here. We've already in section 1 covered the notes for here, but let's take a look at section 2. Rather than me just say, this is the hindbrain, and the hindbrain consists of the medulla oblongata, the pons, and the cerebellum. Now, another thing that you'll need to know is, what does the medulla oblongata itself do? There are 4 things. So basically, that's what I'd like you to do for this particular section of the assignment, is to just have a question on maybe the front side of a note card that just says, name the 3 parts, 1, 2, 3. On the front side would just be that question. On the back side would be medulla oblongata, pons, and cerebellum. That's what it's going to look like on the test, is I'm going to be asking you for that specific type of thing, which of the following is, or which does not belong to, or questions like that. Then a second question that's going to come up, and this is where another flashcard to come in, be saying, talking about the medulla oblongata. Okay, so what would be some functions of the medulla oblongata? Maybe you'd have to list them or things like that. Okay, now we take a look at the next section, the midbrain. Obviously, there's going to be a question on the test that says there's 2 parts of the midbrain. Name them. So on one side of your flashcard would be just 2 parts of the midbrain. On the back side, you'd write mesencephalon and reticular activating system. Then another flashcard would say, okay, what is the function of the mesencephalon? A third flashcard would be, name some parts to the or some functions of the reticular activating system, and so on. Okay, then we get to the diencephalons, ironically named because there's actually 3 parts. There's 3 parts to the diencephalons. We just don't know much about the epithalamus yet. Just in science, we don't know that much about them. So there are 3 parts to name them, but then you'd have something about, what does the thalamus do? What is the hypothalamus? And so on. Then we get to the parts of the cerebrum, okay? And parts of the cerebrum is going to be kind of what those different lobes are about. And I'll talk more about this insula, little is known. I'll talk more about that as we get into it. That'll be part 3 of the lecture, video lecture series, okay? So taking a look at that, limbic system, brain waves, and sleep. Okay, get into some of the awareness, but this also gets into, when we get into disorders, this is where you can stop with your own flashcard stuff. Typically what I do in class is I just simply do this. I just say, okay, here's a day, here, make some flashcards, practice those up, because that's the level of question that's going to be on the test. And then I'm going to get back into notes and video section part 3, that's going to be looking at some different disorders and so on. Now, another thing that you need to be aware of as we get into this is this diagram. Okay, when you see this, there is a sheet with labeling the parts of the diagram. Here's where you're going to be labeling some parts, and you're going to see that on the test too. We have the frontal lobe. What does that do? We have the parietal lobe. What does that do? Here's the occipital lobe. What does that do? Here's the pons. Here's the reticular activating system, and all those other things, corpus callosum. So be able to label some of those key things, and I do have a practice quiz and things like that you're going to be practicing up with that portion. So for this second portion, you do have an assignment, and that's to make some flashcard type knowledge from that second page. I'm looking at your notes, and I'm looking second page, Roman numeral 2 with brain structures. And you're going to go all the way through page 3 and then get into page 4. You can go all the way through sleep stages, even though I'll be talking about those in the third video lecture. You can make some flashcards up through the sleep stages, and then I'll check back with you on the awareness centers and so on. So when we get into disorders, don't make flashcards for those. You don't have to. I'll be mentioning those types of things again. So that is all you have to know for your video section part 2, what you need to be able to do. And this is what I typically do in class. What you be kind of on your own doing some things, that type of knowledge. Okay. So that's all I got for you with that particular section. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions.